if you're doing what you're doing, somebody will find it and it'll work out. Like if it's meant to work out. Mm-hmm. If not, you're putting out really high quality content, connecting with people, right? Worst case scenario, you're connecting with people, creating high quality content, like all this stuff. But everybody, there's a saying that like, it's like, what is it? Nobody's for everybody, but everybody is for somebody. So you're never going to, so take somebody like Taylor Swift. Millions of people hate her. Millions of people love her. Yeah. Who's to say if she's good or bad? All subjective. To a lot of people, I'm not successful because I was never at the Grammys. I didn't win this award, So success to me is monetary and tangible. Happiness, I think, is being okay with the people around you and the situation you're in. But for me, chasing happiness is finding people I like to spend time with, right? All we do in this life is spend time. All we do, right? We're spending time with each other, right? All we do is just spend time. So you might as well spend all that time, or as much time as you can, doing things that you love or with people that you love.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. As always, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for showing support. And thank you guys for showing love towards every single episode. I have a guest with me today, Pasquale Gee. I've been seeing a lot of your work, and through John's Graffiti, we know him mutually, West Bay. But I think the reason why I wanted to have this interview with you is just because last episode I had a thinker and a creative, but there seems to be something about people who write or spend a lot of time in their thoughts that I really resonate with. And in your line of work, as you created music, and as you write now, with the 2 books and the third one coming out soon, I wanted to kind of get a deeper dive into who you are and the backstory and where just even your thinking comes from. So I want to thank you for coming on today. It means a lot to me.
Thank you for having me. I'm a fan of yours as well. I watched the episodes with John. John's special. I've worked with John obviously on the thing we were talking about off camera. Mm-hmm. But me and him are very like-minded. He's very creative, and to work with him is great. But yeah, I'm a fan of the podcast, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So I guess how I really wanted to start this off is that if I could have a book of your life, and I think sometimes we have to know the first chapter of a person's book to really know how everything else panned out for them. If I looked into the first chapter of your book, the autobiography, growing up, what would that first chapter look like?
It would look like a regular childhood. I grew up 2 older sisters and my parents, and it was all very normal. When I got to school, I struggled with, I don't know if it was fitting in. I had a hard time in like elementary school, and luckily, I had a friend there that kind of had my back through everything. Mm-hmm. And then I went to junior high school, and I was kind of the new kid. And so there was a lot of kind of entitled people there that didn't like me being around. So I found myself in a few fights and things like that. So once I got to high school, I had to go to private high school because I couldn't just be fighting in public high school for 4 years. So I went to a private high school, and there I kind of, I think that's where, it would start. That's where the book would start, because I found myself, I wasn't a bad kid, but in high school I was a bit of a follower because I had such poor experiences in junior high school. I think the only thing worse than being like a bad kid is being a follower, because people have opinions about you, but if you're a follower, those opinions will be based off somebody else's actions. So if you're with a group of people and somebody shoves somebody into a locker, you don't do it, you wouldn't do it, but the person you were with did it. So that kid looks at the entire group of people like they all just pushed him into the locker. So it's just one of those things where other people's actions were speaking for me. And I was very content with that because there was no problems. Nobody was giving me an issue. But once, as I got older, I started to want to be judged off my own actions. So that's where my story would start, kind of being a follower in late junior high school, kind of doing things that I didn't necessarily align myself with or value. My values didn't really align with it, but it was just one of those things where to stay out of, trouble, to have no trouble with like the popular kids. If I was one of them, it was cool. But I never put myself in the perspective of the other people's things. Not that, I was a bully or anything like that, but I just felt I didn't have a voice. I was in the background a lot, and I had a lot to say, and I wasn't able to say it. I didn't have the courage to say it.
Interesting. Because I guess what comes to mind in what I think about that is pleasing other people and sacrificing yourself in that regard. Was that something that you struggled with, is just pleasing other people and forgetting about your own?
Yeah, I think to this day, I'm not a people pleaser, but I've been through so much that I know my tolerance. I know the weight my shoulders can carry, and they can carry a lot. And so if doing something for somebody else, if I could do it, I'll do it, because I know it's not going to break me. When I was younger, it wasn't necessarily people pleasing. It wasn't, yesing people to death. It was just trying to fit in, But as I got older, as you experience life, the weight you carry, you're allowed to, you allow yourself to carry more weight, and it becomes nothing. Other people's problems you don't take, but you're able to walk them through it because you've been through it. So people pleasing baby in high school, once I got to college and graduated college, it was kind of like, I had set the tone that I was going to do my own thing. And if I could help people along the way, then I will. But yeah.
Interesting. And was there anything that happened in childhood that maybe was a process, or not a process, but a direct effect of that kind of cultivated that mindset a little bit?
No, I think I come from a very selfless family. I think, we'd have a pie pizza, and my dad would, knowing that I liked the last pepperoni slice, he'd give it to me. He was very selfless. He worked tireless hours, and never really asked for anything in return. He'd work hours and hours and then show up to a baseball game. Being an adult now, like stuff like that. I mean, I don't have a kid, but it's like stuff like that, like sounds taxing, but he didn't really care. And so he was a worker and very selfless, and every dime that he made went right back into the house, and me and my sisters and my mom. And my mom was very selfless with like her heart and her love. Like the things that we would deal with as a family was very taxing on her, but she was always focused on doing the right thing. No matter how far we had to drive or how long it would take, the right thing is important. And it doesn't matter if nobody else is doing the right thing, you have to do it. And so sometimes that's making sacrifices, like you said. Sometimes that is doing things we don't want to do, but it's the right thing to do. And so you do it. And so I think that selfless mindset is given to me by my parents' selfless acts. You become what you see.
Now, at what point did you realize about was there like a pontification that happened where you realized about your creativeness? Like, was there something that happened in terms of like, not anything that happened in particular, but was there something that you kind of noticed about yourself creatively that obviously transcended into who you are now, where you are now?
I always enjoyed creative writing. I remember there was a time in school I was the class clown or whatever. I would always try to make people laugh. And I remember the teacher assigned us like a creative writing assignment. And I'd come up with this story that I thought was really good. And it wasn't funny. It was just really had like twists and turns. And we were all sharing out to the class. And I remember I got called up to go. And a kid told another kid they're like, oh, this is going to be hysterical. And it wasn't. But I felt like because they thought it was going to be funny, I had to make it funny. So I took what I had and I kind of freestyled it to like make it funny. But that was really the first time that I felt like, oh, I enjoy being creative. I enjoy, you know, putting people in a story or a picture or whatever it is. And I felt obviously limited by who I was, you know, the reputation of, you know, being funny or making people laugh. But that was the first time I felt like a creative juice. And then after that, it was all like, my friends would always joke that I would come up with like New York Post headlines. If like something big would happen, I'd have like a creative way to like turn it into like one sentence. And that was, you know, that was for a long time. And then I started picking up instruments and writing songs, and then it all just kind of snowballed.
Yeah. I guess the one sentences make sense because of the picture that I'm looking at, right behind you, the picture.
Yeah.
I took my broken branches and made a nest.
Yeah.
There's so much like strength, and I don't want to say strength or power in like the one-liners, but there's, I guess, kind of really what I want to know is how did, because I did some research and that you got interviewed by News 12 Brooklyn. How did making music help you become a better writer?
So when you're making music, you're able to connect with people in multiple different ways. Sound, words, right? Lyrics. And like a lot of people, when they study, they just listen to music, instrumentals. For me, there's a lot of songs that I enjoy. I don't really love the lyrics, but the beats are sick, right? The beat's nuts. And so you can connect to people through that. There's like a theory to it, like minor chords are sad, major chords are happy. Mm-hmm. And so I would write all these songs, and you'd have to, like, music forces you to stay on topic. You can't really, and you have to write 3 minutes about one particular topic and come up with creative ways. So it's challenging. But I would always have ideas outside of these big songs that maybe weren't enough for a song, like that picture. You know, I can't write 3 minutes about, you know, took my broken branches and made a nest. So music forced me to take one idea and really write about, really drill it into oblivion, and kind of write 3 minutes, 18 lines about one specific thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas, poetry and these books, I could kind of just turn the page on it. I could write one thought down and turn the page. But music made me a better writer. And I had a friend, Mike, when I was younger, who taught me about syllables and kind of writing music. We used to do like cover songs for like camp. And we would take popular songs and we would remix them to fit whatever team we were. And we would count the syllables and do it. So when I first started music, that's what I would do. And then I would write the songs. And but yeah, music kind of forces you to put all of your thoughts into 3 minutes for one topic. And that wasn't easy. It then becomes easier. It never becomes easy. It just becomes easier.
Yeah. I noticed that some of the songs that you've written about were some of the toughest times in your life. Yeah. There was one song in particular where you said that, that the paraphrasing, but you were losing everything and everything seemed so uncertain, but you felt like with her you won at life. Mm-hmm. And what was it about in the creation of music that you wanted to talk about heartbreak or relationships?
I think everybody at some point experiences love or heartbreak. I think those are the two strongest emotions we feel outside of grief. And thankfully, I've experienced grief, not to the most extreme where I've lost the people closest to me. I've lost my uncle, who was extremely important to me, but I grieved the loss of my uncle, but more so I grieved like the innocence of my cousins because they lost their dad. So it's like I grieve on my own time, but I try to be with them through that process. But so heartbreak and love, I think, just hit home so hard for me. And for me, I find them extremely easy to write about. You know, for me, love is big. Love is cathedral. Love is open air. Love is garden. Like, you can't really grasp it, but it's fresh and it's big, and you can't really put words to it, but you try, and it just falls into this beautiful room. Heartbreak is very specific. Heartbreak is tight. Heartbreak is, you know, I had to go to Home Goods and buy new candles because my place smelled like that night, you know? Heartbreak is staring out a window and a really bad rainstorm is happening, but you hope that she got inside, that she's okay, that she's just not caught in it. You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference between love and heartbreak. I always found it easy to write about because I always found it so vivid. And I feel like I had a gift where I'm able to remember what we were wearing, what it smelled like, what music was playing. I'm able to remember everything. And it's just one of those things where I said it the other day, like, you give me a pen and I'll tell the world about it. You know, there's going to be a guy in Middle America who opens one of my books one day and is going to know about the way you laugh and the way you smile. And that's just one of those things where I'm good at articulating the way I feel in those moments. So love and heartbreak, I think, are two things that everybody connects to. And me personally, that's what really gravitates me towards writing, is those moments I go to writing.
Yeah, and it's also the way that you write about it too that I think is so fascinating. Because we have, like, we know what love is, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't know how to describe what it. We can't put words to the feeling, right? And it's so hard. Mm-hmm. It's something that we're all trying to figure out in some sense, you know. Like, what it's different for everybody, because something that you might love or somebody that you might love is different than the next person. Exactly. You know, it's like you said, the candle, right? And you have to get rid of the candle because that smell, that scent, smells like them, or that night, mm-hmm. or that moment in time. And it just, sometimes it makes me wonder, like, what is the most important thing in this life, right? We live in a society where, you know, so many existential things are really the forefront of people's motivations and inspirations and desires. But mm-hmm. I think one of the most beautiful things about, you know, love is that you genuinely just can't describe the feeling. Like, there's nothing that you could describe about it. And when it's there, you're full of life, you're abundant, everything is so radiant around you. You know, you start to walk a certain way, you start to feel a certain way. And conversely, in that same respect, once it's taken away from you, it's like a piece of you is gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's like somebody's taken something from you.
Exactly. And it feels like, for me, for a long time, it was very difficult to write about love or relationship, like good relationship stuff, when I was in it, because it's just tough, right? You're happy. You don't want to sit down and write. But when things end, I had the tendency to write about beautiful things because they're not there anymore. So you want them. So things become bigger. They become stronger, brighter, mm-hmm. right? So after things end, I found myself writing about them and kind of these grandiose things that I wanted back because I didn't have them anymore. Mm-hmm. When I had them, the love poems were simple, right? But with this new wave of writing that I did, like for this third book, a lot of people notice that there's not like stanzas poems, right? There's not like these, there is some lengthy ones, but a lot of it is just kind of thoughts, because I really tried to be present and just put my thoughts onto paper. And when I looked back, I was like, oh wow, this is actually really sweet, or really nice, or it really describes what I was feeling. Like I recently wrote something, I was at a mass and they had the painted ceilings, and I kind of dove into who painted it and why, and the motivation for these painters behind painting these incredible ceilings for days and days and days. And you always wonder, like, what that woman's eyes looked like. They had to have looked like the sun, right? To be able to paint ceilings. And so I had written something down. It was like, I think if we lived in a different time, I would have painted ceilings for you. I would have done these grandiose things, but it's just a line like that. It's not a poem, but it's just a thought that I think encapsulated the way I was feeling at the time, you know?
And there's so much like self-awareness that has to be reflected upon during a relationship, after a relationship, in love, you know, out of love. And I don't know, it's just, I guess what I would like to know is, what have you learned about yourself throughout all the relationships that you've been in? Like if you could put in a bottle, right, the lessons that you've learned, and you know, to a future partner, if you are currently seeing somebody, like what are those experiences for you, and what have you learned about not only the loss of yourself in some of those situations, but the loss of loved ones?
That's a good question. And I think it's different through all of it, right? I was in a situation a few years back when I had released my first book, and I had really found my footing. And I felt like, you know, I was good to the universe. I worked really hard. This is the universe rewarding me with you know, a relationship of some sort. And I felt like I had it all together, and this was who I was. And whatever, we would spend time together, and it didn't work out. And I feel like she muted a lot of the things that I enjoyed. Like, she loved that I was a deep person, I was emotionally aware. But when it was time to like meet her friends had, you know, boyfriends in accounting and all that stuff. It's just like I didn't really align or fit in with them. And so her values were a little different than maybe mine. And that kind of hit me hard, because it's like, here I am thinking that I am not the best I could be, but I was really happy with myself. And to hear that I was inadequate or incomplete kind of stung me, right? It hurts. But you know, you take it on the chin, and you meet somebody else, and it isn't until you're treated the right way or appropriately until you realize, you know, what was wrong, right? You don't know what's good until you've had something pretty bad. And that was kind of the situation that I found myself in, you know, because like, and I never told anybody this, like, I never told anybody there wasn't going to be a book 3, right? After book 2, I really didn't like the way I felt about myself. I couldn't really articulate what it was. A lot of people liked book 2. A lot of people liked, the stuff that I wrote and connected with it. But for me, it just didn't really do it. You know, I thought it would, like the process did, right? The writing process kind of did it for me. But I reconnected with somebody earlier this year, and it was like I had the sun in my sweatshirt. That's what it felt like. It felt like something really special, and it had no choice but to like ease out of my sleeves. And I found myself writing about it. And that's kind of how the birth of book 3 came. But it's just one of those things where you meet somebody, and me personally, I don't get used to anybody. I don't let anybody in, just because for a while I've let people in and they've just like messed up the room and left, right? Trashed the place and left. So when it comes to the stuff that's important to me, like I could spend time with a bunch of people, but when it comes to stuff that's important to me and stuff that I have in the works, I really don't let a lot of people in. So I reconnected with somebody in earlier this year, and for some, I can't explain it. They floated over all the walls that I had built up. They opened the doors to all the brick houses that I had gated up to not let people in, and they made it in. And I found myself telling them the things I had planned. I would tell them things that nobody else would know. And they were super warm and real with me. And when things didn't work out, I didn't get a publishing deal or whatever it was, the response was always, so? keep going. Like, go get another one. Like, and for me, that I'm not used to hearing that. You know, I remember we were sitting outside her house one day, and I had told her that I had a big meeting coming up, and she looked at me. She said, "I'm proud of you." People don't say that to me. You know, my family says that to me when I do something. I release a book. And my friends say that when I put something out cool. But people aren't just out here saying that. And so I remember I turned and I said, like, "What'd you say?" She said it again. I was like, "Okay." And for a really long time, I got used to her. I got used to, because she was rock. She was real. She was, anytime I had an issue with anything, I'd call her. Not like she had like every answer, but presence, right? The idea of presence was there with her. And I felt not muted. I felt like the things that I really loved, she welcomed and she loved too. And it was reversed too. Like, she was incredible. She was real. She was, into art. She was creative. And a lot of people didn't know this side of her. So I was kind of blessed to kind of be a part of it. And part of it too is that, like, we had a lot of mutual friends, but it was just us. I didn't tell the homies nothing. She didn't tell anybody. It was just us. And it was kind of this thing we had that was really special. Was really special to me, and helped me through a lot. Helped me through the loss of my uncle. She was there, and I'll always be in debt for her to her for that. But yeah, it was just one of those things. And fast forward now, we don't talk anymore, or we're not talking. I don't want to say we don't talk anymore. We're not talking. But I'll always root for her, right? I know what I'm looking for, or I know that whatever we had can't be duplicated, but I know what healthy feels like now. I know what supported feels like now, right? These are definitions that I didn't have in other types of situations, right? It was always kind of dinner, hang out, laugh. There was no deeper level to it. This taught me that. This brought a whole new kind of vocabulary into spending time with people. And I could say it now. She's one of the more beautiful things that's ever ran across my life. And something like that doesn't just run across without, kicking up dust. And it's dust that, like, I'll write about. And yeah. So when we talk about situations and lessons that I've learned, I know what works for me, and I know what I want, and I think I've found bits and pieces of it in different people. But yeah, that's one thing that I've learned. It's that bits and pieces of everybody. I've gathered enough intel, or whatever you want to say, to where I know what I'm looking for. But like you said, like, love is one of those things where you can't describe it, so it could come in a completely different form, right? Like, somebody could walk across the street from me in a couple of hours, and my definition would change. What I'm looking for will change. It all depends on the person, and what's healthy for one person is toxic for another person. So I feel like it's all relative. And what you said before, like, what's this life's purpose? It's like, we'll never find it out. But I think it's people. I think it's our family, the people we love, the people we are romantic with. Only because, right? Long drives, beautiful views over the city. You think of people. You think of, oh, if they were here right now, they'd love this. Oh, I'll save this person from a burning, you're a hero in all your stories, right? Oh, I wish I was, when you're away, I wish I was at home. I wish we were around the piano at Christmas time, around the tree. So I think people, our mind always reverts back to people when we stare at the most amazing things. When we're on, I've never been to the Grand Canyon, but I've been to, like, these beautiful places that are extremely open. The south of Italy has extremely open ocean. And you just look out there and you think of, where she is. You think of your friends, your family. I'm not thinking about money, right? I'm not thinking about, investing. I'm thinking about people and, like, what matters. And the warmth of people, and you only hope to give people the love and warmth that they give you.
Yeah, my mind went in a couple places and a couple things I wanted to talk about. I guess the first thing is while we are on the topic of relationships, I saw something the other day where Tom Brady and his spouse or whatever are no longer together, and like that whole thing of what is this what is our purpose on this earth, or what are we as humans supposed to experience? I truly wonder if like success is that thing sometimes. Like I ponder between success and then love or happiness. You know what I mean? Those three things, right?
Yeah.
I ponder between those three things.
Yeah.
Because you can be successful but still unhappy.
Yeah.
You could be in a relationship and still be unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
You could have success, happiness, but still not have love. You know what I mean? So I think it's this weird equation.
You could have two, you can't have three.
Yeah. And what if you have all three, then
what does that look like?
Yeah. And what is that?
Yeah.
Like what will we describe that as?
Exactly. So in my opinion, I always viewed it as success is monetary. Success is achievements and, monetary and visual.
Mm-hmm.
To a lot of people, I'm not successful because I was never at the Grammys. I didn't win this award, So success to me is monetary and tangible.
Mm.
Happiness, I think, is being okay with the people around you and the situation you're in. I feel like I've experienced both. I used to want success. I used to want everybody to know who I was, and obviously make a ton of money and tour, and that's what I wanted. I wanted success. But now that I'm older, I want to be happy. I'm on that path. But for me, chasing happiness is finding people I like to spend time with, right? All we do in this life is spend time. All we do, right? We're spending time with each other, right? All we do is just spend time. So you might as well spend all that time, or as much time as you can, doing things that you love or with people that you love. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, all we do is spend time, do it with the people you love. The money, if it's meant to come, it'll come. Obviously, you need money to support yourself, so you got to do what you got to do. But it's just one of those things where money shouldn't dictate what you do. I know I learned at a very young age, my family was not a wealthy family. Like I said, my dad worked tirelessly. My mom didn't have the greatest job. They never let us know. Right? We always came home to a house, right? But as you get older, you understand your parents' struggle, right? You understand, because now I'm getting older than my parents were when they had me. So it's like they're still there. They were growing up too. It's just one of those things. But we knew a lot of wealthy families that weren't happy, that weren't together on Christmas and on Thanksgiving, or were going through a nasty divorce. So it's like, would you rather have money and not have mom and dad? It's just one of those things where I always viewed money as important, but not my life.
Yeah. Because, I'm in that same boat, I've wanted to have the world know who I was, or the podcast or whatever. But then I think about it, and I still do for a good reason, for a good cause. But then, when I think about success, you just kind of alluded to success equals achievements. It equals goals being achieved. Mm-hmm. But then it also creates ego in a sense, because you're receiving all these achievements, all this praise, all this, notoriety. And then what are you getting in return? You're getting, your ego is being boosted. And then happiness, well, what is that?
Exactly.
Happiness is fleeting. You can, John said one time, a butterfly will always fly away, but if you create the nest, or you create the garden, it'll come to you.
Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And ego is dangerous. And you know that you love something when you do it in spite of people not liking what you do. Mm-hmm. I had a kid when I first started making music tell me that my music made his ears bleed. And 17-year-old Pasquale, wouldn't see the light of day. I would never leave my house again. I loved music so much that didn't make me want to stop. That made me want to keep going. But when you do it for validation and you do it for flowers, per se, it's never healthy. And for a long time, I feel like people really didn't rock with me the way that I wanted them to, or I feel like they should have. So I went in the back and I grew myself a garden. And I gave myself the validation that I sought from other people. And I did it for so long that I started to write from the source. I started to write with light and honesty. And once I started doing that, then I started to connect with people. Mm-hmm. Then I started to get my flowers. And it's just one of those things where I'm well aware that those flowers aren't always going to be there. People aren't always going to connect with my stuff. People are going to grow up, age out of it, whatever it is. But I have the garden. I have the garden in the back. I have my flowers that I grew myself, that I give myself. Yeah. And so validation is one of those things that I sought for a long time. But then I realized that I didn't need them or want them because I was able to give them to myself. And then once you do that, everything becomes genuine. I feel like there was a shift in the stuff I was creating. It felt a lot kinder and more honest. And it was because it was coming from a genuine place. I wasn't trying to please anybody. When I first started, it was like, oh, look at me. This is cool, right? It's like, no, this is what I make. You think it's cool, great. If you don't, the next person might. So validation and ego is an extremely dangerous thing. And that's why I think you see a lot of younger celebrities, like who get famous young and become older. I think a lot of them struggle because their ego is fed at such an impressionable age, a young age. Like imagine being 16 years old, buying both your parents' houses, and then having to listen to a teacher. You wouldn't be able to tell me nothing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I'm very glad that the successes that I've had, through writing have come later in my life where I'm able to value things and appreciate monetary success, but not make it my life and not make it my personality. Yeah. To where I'm better than anyone. I think I have a really good job of keeping myself in check. And also my thoughts, right? I've been through a lot. So my thoughts really never allow me to think too highly of myself.
Yeah, I definitely felt that in terms of becoming, I don't even want to call it successful, but in terms of, I guess to know a little bit more for anybody listening, a little bit more of a backstory. I started creating content when I was 20 years old, 21. And I was going through a rough patch at the time, and I just started to create the videos. And once the videos started to kind of pop off in a sense, that's when the ego started, right? That it wasn't to the extent of oh, I'm better than you, all of that, but I'm now at that. I'm trying to be now more at that stage that you're at, where once I reach 200,000 followers on TikTok, now I'm okay, now I'm yearning for not the views per se, mm-hmm. because the message was always the same, or mm-hmm. the purpose was always the same, but then it's you start to doubt yourself. And it's the whole thing with the flowers, the flowers are going to eventually die someday, whether it's a couple of days from now, a week from now, a year from now. And I think that's been the biggest struggle for me, at least, has been, I wish I had success later in life, 30, 35, mm-hmm. or seeing stuff like that. And I feel now I'm at a point where once it's starting to be depleted, now I have to build that garden, like you said, mm-hmm. Where I have to make sure that garden is well put together. Everything is watered, and, I'm rechecking the soil and I'm re-putting in the soil, because it's a dangerous thing, because then you start to question your own work, or mm-hmm. is what I'm even doing valuable anymore? Yeah. And that's kind of a point where I'm at. And I think what's so great about writing or creating a podcast is that those things you won't see none of that until it could happen, mm-hmm. in a year, yeah. but most of the greatest writers are 5-10 years, yeah. Just Ryan Holiday is one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. He's been writing for a long time. Oh yeah. And there's just something so much more valuable in creating something long term, because you're building the character and you're not getting the quick yearn or the quick acceptance of the ego.
Yeah. And something I always admired about John Scafidi was his ability to kind of understand that. I was always kind of drawn to John because he was a little bent. He was a little dented, right? He's got a story behind him, and I do too. And so you connect with people like that, and he's running a clothing brand. He's doing all these things. He's a super creative guy. For me, people in my space, there's not a lot of people where I'm from who are doing what I'm doing, right? There's not a lot of people, from Flatbush, Marine Park, Brooklyn, who are, writing poetry. So it's difficult for me to connect with people around here. But I connect with John, and I feel like a lot of the other people I connect with, writers have a tendency to be a little pretentious, to kind of live on a high horse. I've never been to a ranch. I don't exist that way. So I've always been drawn to people who are a little bit bent or dented or have a story. But clothing, right? You could have bought something from John 4 years ago, and if you wear it today, you can, because it's clothes, right? You could wear it. And At War will always be John. Handwritten notes. Those are things you can't delete in Google Photos, right? That's forever, right? Anything handwritten stays. Mm-hmm. Like, I could leave, I could pass away, whatever it is, those books will stay. Those books will be, my nieces will have them, my parents, you know what I'm saying? Like, that stuff is forever. And for me, I got to a point where I was like, I know I'm not going to live forever, but my best chance to live forever is to give people tangible parts of me. Because like I said, my uncle passed away and he leaves behind an incredible legacy and things like that. But I know every one of his kids would love a note, a book, something of like that's him, that's his voice, and they have it in clothing and they have it on video and things like that. But there's something about handwritten things that you can hold that are special, that like live longer than just a picture. So I think I always admired John for doing clothes, because I remember I bought something from At War years ago and I still have it. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's just one of those things where it's forever. These books, that stuff is forever. This new book, whatever. Journals, right? There's something about something handwritten that just means more. But yeah, I used to not want to, I used to be like, oh, one day we'll pass away and that's it. But there was a time where, I was like, I want to do my best at trying to live forever. Mm. And through that, you impact people, right? You end up on, people are like, oh, can I cut this out of your book and put it on my wall? Hey, can I get this thing tattooed on me? Which is always pretty wild. But it's like, yeah, that's incredible. That's like, if people don't know me, I don't really care if people know me. Know my message. Forget me, remember my message. That's kind of what I want to be remembered for.
And there's something so powerful in books that at any point, right, like anytime you publish a book, all it needs to be seen is by one person. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, who is this guy?
Exactly.
Like it could be written 10, 20 years ago. Then one person picks it up. It's like, bro, this is the greatest book ever.
Yep.
Or why has this not been taken into account? Or why have we not seen this?
And the other thing is too, and something I learned, and I think it's an important lesson for all creative podcasters, whoever it is. Excuse me. I got into a point in my music career where I was really happy with the stuff I was making. I didn't always feel about that all the time. I liked what I was making, but music is one of those things where if it's good. If I hit piano notes, that's not supposed to be there, right? That doesn't sound right. When it's good, when it's bad. For a while, I kind of knew it was bad, but I knew I had to go through bad things to become good, right? You hear always these artists say, my first songs were terrible. But I got to a point where I was really happy with the music I was making, and that's what mattered, that I enjoyed it. And I knew if I had the right audience, it would pop off, right? It was was good. It was pop music, right? There was a market for it. I was making music just like these other artists. And I knew that it was quality and that it was good. And I would do my best to promote it. But I got to a point where I was like, I'm doing all I can. If the universe doesn't want to put things into place and not give it to the right people, whatever it is, I'm still making high quality music. And that was the goal, right? And so it's just one of those things where if you do what you're doing, your shit's good.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing what you're doing, somebody will find it and it'll work out. Like if it's meant to work out.
Mm-hmm.
If not, you're putting out really high quality content, connecting with people, right? Worst case scenario, you're connecting with people, creating high quality content, like all this stuff. But everybody, there's a saying that like, it's like, what is it? Nobody's for everybody, but everybody is for somebody. So you're never going to, take somebody like Taylor Swift. Millions of people hate her. Millions of people love her.
Yeah.
Who's to say if she's good or bad? All subjective, right? So it's just one of those things where you have the product, you have the high quality product. People they'll find it. If it's given to them, they'll find it.
Yeah.
But trying different things is important, but changing yourself is the wrong move. You know what I'm saying? Like if I would have switched genres, maybe I would have done better. That's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right? I don't like to read my own poetry out loud. If I would have sat in front of a camera and did it, maybe I would have popped off. That's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
So it's like I wanted to make high quality stuff, and as a result, I found myself to do that, and whether or not I have 1 million followers or not doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
It's that I'm doing what I set out to do, right? Goals are super important.
So how do you in terms of so something that I also struggle with and I also wonder about, and I know probably other people wonder about, what if the stuff that you're publishing, right, you feel like it's good, but it's not seeing the traction, and is there a point where you're just like, well, maybe it's just not for me anymore? Is there a point where you upon creation of something, you're putting out high quality things, but it's just not hitting, it's just, whatever reason, it's not sticking.
Mm-hmm.
Is there ever a point where you're just kind of like, well, maybe there's more power in shifting the direction or shifting, kind of my pivot?
Yeah. So I'm always feeling like that, right? As a creative, you have to wear two hats. You have to wear the creative hat. You have to wear the promotional hat, right? It's like, what's smart to put out and what's kind of lousy? Like, your demographic, right? So it's like, people will love this if I put this out, but this isn't really who I am. Mm-hmm. But sometimes some people do it, right? Some people don't do it. For me, writing has become such an outlet that I'll write whether or not I have Instagram or not. I'll write poetry whether or not 5 people view it or 500 people or 5 million. That's what I do. That is something that I use to get through things personally, and I'll never stop writing. And maybe I'll get to the point where I'm like, maybe this isn't just working out. I don't think I'll ever quit. Mm-hmm. One thing I'll never do is, surrender to anything. Because I enjoy my things. I know people enjoy the stuff I write. And if one person can enjoy it, 500 people can enjoy it, and so on and so forth. But the beauty of it, right, the beauty of being a creative is that, I did music. I shifted to poetry and writing. And now, if I wanted to shift into acting, a lot of people that know me would be like, oh, of course. He's just doing something else, right? And I feel like if you're not a creative, then it's a little different, right? You can't really shift or pivot. So me personally, there's other things I want to do, right? I've played around with art, painting and things like that. And I haven't been, I'm not Picasso, right? I'm not all these, but I love to do it. And I did it and people enjoyed it, and maybe I'll do it again. So it's just one of the things that I love, the ability to be free in what I do. There's really not much that I could do next where people would be shocked, So any pivot for me, I don't think would come as a surprise, but I have to be really, really passionate about it and want to do it. Because when I put my mind to something, I think I could do anything.
Yeah. I kind of want to, what I wanted to be able to ask you was, there was something earlier in this podcast that you alluded to, the 3-letter words, I'm proud of you. Well, 4 actually. What about that kind of resonated with you in that moment? And like, what were you feeling when you heard that?
I remember when, she told me, she's like, I'm proud of you. And I had like chills, because you don't hear that from people. I don't hear that from people.
Especially as men as well.
As men, we don't hear that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I make sure or I try to say it as much as possible. When you're like, from my experience, I've been through a lot. And so I try to be what's absent in my own life. I try to be extremely, maybe it's supportive or loyal, or tell people I'm proud, because I know what it's like. And so when she said it, I was very taken back. And I almost thought it was a joke. She had a straight face on. But I think it was just because I don't get told that unless I did something great, right? Unless I did something big, not great. Published a book, put out, or played this festival, or wrote that thing, But she had said it because I got a meeting, and it's something that I should have been proud of myself for. I didn't realize I wasn't. I wasn't proud of myself. So she said, I'm proud of you. Then it kind of hit me like, me too, right? You don't really, you're so caught up in like the hustle of it that you forget to like stop and smell the flowers. And we forget as creatives that we're doing things that are worthy of being proud of, that a lot of people don't have the courage to do. Right? A lot of people don't have the courage to be on camera. A lot of people don't have the courage of, courage to take their journals that they've written and give them to everybody, in a book. Right? So it's one thing to acknowledge the courage it takes to be a creative, but then it's another thing to kind of hear it from somebody else. But yeah, to hear it took me back, because especially as men, we don't hear it, right? Like, I'll tell my friends all the time, like, I'm pumped for you, like all that stuff. But it's different when you hear it from somebody and it's genuine and it's random.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially that whole part where, you're trying to be proud of yourself. Because you always feel like you could do more. And that's something that I struggle with, is like, I always feel like I could do more. Like, I always feel like I got more in the tank.
Yeah.
And
it's tough to relax because you could always be doing something.
Yeah. The fulfillment of accomplishing something or doing something, or feeling like what you're doing is not enough, That's something that I truthfully, I do struggle with. And then I hear people talk about being bored, and like just being bored. Like
yo, I wish.
But there's also some power, like in being bored, at least, and not doing anything for a set period of time.
You have to allow yourself to miss things.
Yeah.
Right? Like, obviously, if we had it our way, we'd be able to be creative all the time, and we wouldn't have, work to do, or people to see, or errands to run. But like, when you're away for a while, right? If you go on vacation, or whatever it is, you enjoy vacation, but part of you misses the creative process. And I feel like you have to miss it to really enjoy it. That's why I tell younger artists, right? Because I was, I had a job, but after work, I was on the train, 2 open mics a night, 3 open mics a night, on the train back. It was always, right, I was playing in parks. But when I was at work, I would miss music. I would be like, oh, I wish I could be doing music now. And then I would get out and I would go do it. And it was great. And then when I wasn't working, it was one of those things where there was so much pressure on it, and I felt like music wasn't very kind to me. If there was a day where I couldn't make a beat or I couldn't make a song, I would feel like, oh, this is who I am. This is who I told people I was, and I can't do it. I can't make a song right now. But it wasn't until I kind of, if I can't make a song, I'll go train. I'll go to the store. I'll go work out. I'll go for a walk, whatever it is. I'll go hang out with my friends. And then once I realized that, like, once you start to water other parts of your life, the garden starts to grow, right? Once you go out and you go see that, or you tell that girl you like her, or you go out and you spend time with your friends, then you find yourself to be more creative because you have more things to kind of write about. And you miss writing, and you come home and you do it, right? So that's kind of something I learned through experience, was that you can't just force anything, and being bored is a privilege, right? It's nice to be bored sometimes. I know people who are bored all the time, but they don't have any hobbies. They don't have any creative outlets, But yeah, like, it's also like being by yourself, the ability to be by yourself, right? Spending time with yourself or being alone, right? Solitude or loneliness, right? Loneliness is you sit there, it's like, oh, I wish somebody was here. I wish this and that. Solitude is you're on your own and you're doing your own thing. You just happen to be by yourself, right? Loneliness is wanting people to be here. And so for me, finding that balance between solitude and loneliness, right? Finding solitude and not being lonely really helped me, because I was alone a lot, right? I spent a lot of time by myself growing up, and going through that whole thing in school, and then living far away from everybody in high school. I spent a lot of time by myself. And yeah, you could either spend time with yourself or you could be lonely wishing somebody was next to you. So I chose to do the first one. And as a result, I found a bunch of different things that I was passionate about.
Yeah. What's something that you haven't forgiven yourself for?
I am notoriously not kind to myself. A lot when I was younger. Now it's a little better. But I'm not somebody who could speak. My words won't convince me that I'm good. I need to kind of do it. I need to write something. I need to hold evidence, that like helps my confidence, right? Because if I tell myself something too many times, I won't believe it, right? We are our own worst enemy, right? It's you versus you. Something I haven't forgiven myself for. I always think I was really, really hard on my younger self, because he wished he was other people a lot of times. He wished he looked like other people. He wished he had the talent of other people. And so he gave himself a lot of shit that wasn't deserved, because he was also into cool things, cool shit, and original stuff, but he was too scared to show anybody. But my younger self was extremely hard on myself and wouldn't allow me to enjoy anything. And I didn't have to be like that. If I would have just, and as a result, the people that are important to you start to feel it, right? When you're that age, when you're young and you have dark, right? There's dark, surrounding you, like this black cloud. Your dark becomes visible from other people. When the people that love you kind of care about you and they see it, and it kind of bleeds into everything you do. But yeah, I wasn't very kind to myself when I was younger. But as I hit my mid-20s, early 20s, I kind of started to see, oh, okay, like, I don't want to be anybody else. The stuff I'm doing is cool because I don't see anybody else doing it. I don't see anybody else, being from where I'm from and writing books and being able to work with, very creative people, or being able to do this and that. So yeah, I don't think I was very kind to myself when I was younger. But like I always say, like, I had to do that to get here, which is super important.
What would you tell him now?
What would I tell him? You're good. You're going to be all right. Breathe. Yeah, breathe. You're going to be okay. You're going to be all of the things that you're you're going to become all the things that you don't see in the people you want to be. The people you want to be look this way and act that way. You will become none of those things and be happy.
As somebody who is constantly hard on himself as well, I wonder. I just wonder why. Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
What was that driving factor? Like, for me at least, and I don't know if you work this way as well, but for me at least, I've noticed that me being hard on myself and me being negative towards myself has actually motivated me and inspired me to do more or to be better. And I guess in some regards, you know, I've tried to push it out of my life, but then I wonder if I do push that out, what would take me. I just feel like that negative voice for me sometimes gets me to that next level.
Motivates you.
Yeah, like it gets me it just pushes me to another notch.
Yeah.
You know, but it's so nasty and it's so hypercritical and it's so negative that.
And so it's so present sometimes too.
Yeah.
Right? It feels real. Like somebody told me when I was younger, I went through a lot, and I met a monk, and he said something that I'll take with me today. It's like, you're the screen, not the movie. You know, you are the thing that plays the thoughts. The movie changes. After 2 hours, the movie shuts off, something else comes on. But you're the screen. You have to take it. You know, the thoughts come, they'll leave, but they'll be there. Right? Sometimes they're funny movies, sometimes they're happy movies. But if you understand that you're the screen and not the movie, then you're kind of, right? Because we're aware that like these thoughts aren't us. Right? We're aware that like these negative things that we are hearing from whatever, they're not us, right? We know that, but yet sometimes they still kind of get to us. But I think it's a win if you use it as motivation, if you're able to use it as motivation, right? Because you're taking something negative and you're creating something positive out of it. And I'm so big on that. I think that I've had some shitty relationships or situations in my life, and as a result, they're books that people connect with. There was a story about a war that went on in a South American country, and somebody took all the guns and made them into instruments. And so what was once deadly weapons now are used to make beautiful music. Elephant tusks, right? We love elephants. We love animals. You know, 50,000 elephants are killed a year, but they become music, right? They become our favorite. They become instruments in which we play our favorite song on. So to take things that are bad and make them good, we kind of take those negative thoughts and we win over them. But I do think struggle is a superpower. I do think that because we've struggled, we're able to connect with people on a deeper level. We're able to talk to people about certain things that maybe other people aren't, right? We're able to carry weight without breaking our posture. So for me, I'm always thankful that I went through what I went through. With anxiety or whatever it was, or not feeling present, because now I'm way more understanding of people. I'm way more kind to people. Not that I wasn't kind to people, but you're just more patient with people. You understand people more, right? And the best thing you could do is be welcoming to somebody. Be somebody that somebody feels comfortable around. As a creative, my favorite thing is when people say to me like, oh, I write too. I'll never show anybody, but I write too. Because that's a big thing, right? As a 30-year-old, whatever it is, telling somebody you like to write poetry, as somebody who's like an accountant or somebody who's a teacher, whatever it is. That's not easy, especially if you're a guy. It's like to be that for some, to be welcome, to feel welcoming to people is a gift. And that all comes from struggle. That all comes from not like the absence of that, right? Good people become what's present in their life. which I have, right? Kindness, selflessness, love. But I think people who put in the work could become what's absent, right? People who come from tough struggle and don't have support or loyalty, and that's absent in their life. If they become those things, then that's success too.
Is that where you got the quote? I think growing is separating church from state and understanding that struggle is a part of us. We visit from time to time, but that's no longer all we know.
Yeah, because a lot of the things that I write, so I'm sure this doesn't surprise you, but the thing that connects to people the most is sad things, right? Things that I have written when I was very low and sad or mad and didn't feel like doing anything. It was, I didn't like that person that wrote those things, but they wrote them and people read them and people are connected to them. And I make sure to publish these books after. So it's all retrospective. I wrote those in catharsis. I wrote those in the moment. But publishing it, I'm able to be retrospective. Oh, that happened. But when people connect to those things, they're connecting to somebody who I'm not a fan of, right? Who I didn't enjoy being, but I'm forced to revisit it to talk about that, right? But that's not who I am. I revisit that person. I use that person to write, but that's not who I am. I go back and I visit that person and say, oh, look, when you were sad, you did this. Great. I'm not hurt. I'm not a hurt person. I got hurt. I've gotten hurt, but saying I'm hurt gives the people that did that to me too much power, too much permanence. I'm not going to give people the permanence to be in the way that I describe myself, right? You broke my heart. You did something to me. You hurt me. I'm not hurt because of it, right? I'm not a hurt person, right? By you doing that, you don't get to be included in the way I describe myself. So, it's separating church from state. It's going back and being like, oh yeah, I wrote that because of this. Not like, oh, I'm going through this and this is what that's about. It's all retrospective. And so as long as we understand that, like, it's okay, right? It's all right. Something that, for me, I used to tell myself all the time is that joy, and I said this to somebody else recently, joy does not stay, right? The joy we have in life doesn't stay. And I used to be a real cynic. Like, oh, what am I doing this for? Why am I making these things? Why am I enjoying this meal? Like, joy does not stay. Like, it doesn't stay. It's not going to last, right? Joy doesn't last. It's just going to go away. But as I got older, I realized that joy will not stay is almost a blessing, right? Joy will not stay. I've achieved this thing. Joy will not stay. Okay, but it always comes back, right? Joy always comes back. If joy stays, it becomes content. And as creatives, content is a nightmare, right? We can't stay in one place all the time. So the beauty about joy is that we experience it. And whatever it leaves, doesn't mean sadness has to come, but it leaves. But it comes back and it's joy again. If it was always joy, it becomes vanilla, right? So something like joy will not stay as a bad thing, right? Oh, what's the point of this? Joy's not, I'm not going to be happy forever. Becomes joy will not stay. It'll be back, it'll come back.
But don't you think staying in that, like, for example, when you write about these versions of yourself, how do you disconnect from that person, right? Like, because if there's feelings or love or emotions involved, obviously that you're going to feel that again. Mm-hmm. So how do you disconnect from that person?
I don't. I think that person's always in me.
Yeah.
Sometimes they flex their muscles a little harder than other times, but you just move on. I read something. It's like on a random day, you just get better. And it's true. We spend so much time getting over things. People that won't talk to us or people that broke up with us or all these things. And we sit in hurt for so long and darkness for so long. And then just one day, we're just good, right? It's just a random day. You're just like, okay, I could do it, right? I'll be okay. For me, there were times where like, I don't want to be okay. If I have to be okay without that person, I don't want to be okay. But time heals everything. Everything. And it's something as simple as like going out with the homies, spending time watching the fights. It's like, okay, this is what it's about. I'm fine. I'll be okay. There'll be another person, I could grieve the loss of somebody, but also allow myself some time to do other things and grieve, the people that left wouldn't want us to sit around and grieve them 24 hours a day. They'd want us to do all the, live a good life. And so how do I separate it? It's just get over it, right? The beauty of writing is that once I write it, it's there. And I could grow out of it, but it's there, right? So do I have to answer to it all the time? No. But it's there, and I use it to connect to people. Because something that I learned, my fear when I first started making music even, like, am I going through things that other people aren't? And the answer is absolutely not. Like, that's such an ego-based thing. Like, oh, I'm the only one feeling anxious? I'm the only one that doesn't like the way I look? No. Everybody. Almost everybody. Right? And so you connect to people through that stuff. And that's been the greatest thing, to be able to connect to people. And the person I was talking about earlier, a lot of people had looked at me for a while. That was the first time I felt seen by somebody, like actually seen. And I think doing that, giving people the opportunity to be seen if they don't have the ability to see it themselves, right? Giving people the opportunity to be seen through writing, through anything. If they can relate to something, I've won.
Yeah. What goes into, as somebody who wants to write a book someday,
Mm-hmm.
what goes into writing a book, and how do you prepare? Like, what's the process of creating a book, and how do you keep yourself locked in to actually writing a book?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So the most I've ever written were like short stories, 8-9 pages. But these poetry books that I've published are a little bit of a cop-out, because I don't have to be married to one idea for 200 pages. I could be married to an idea for 3 lines and then turn the page and it's a different poem. You know what I'm saying? So it's like writing books. So everything I did was self-published. So that was like work, like formatting it, stuff like that. That's like the nitty-gritty of it. But for me, I never, like I said, book 3 wasn't supposed to happen, but I was writing anyway. And then once I had or have, 180, 160 things written, then I would go through it, shift through it, and see what's good, what's not good, what I like, what I would want people to see, what I'm comfortable with people seeing. And then I would never be able to just publish 200 poems. So the second book has like a theme to it. I'll have like 4 poems throughout in each chapter that kind of show growth. In the first book I had, it was months. It was like, I wish it was October. I wish it was July. I wish it was May. Because in the summertime, I can't wait for the fall. I love the fall. In the fall, I can't wait for the winter because I love Christmas, right? In the winter, I can't wait for it to be warm. I can't wait for spring. So it's just one of those things where no matter where we are, we're always looking ahead. We're never here. So that was the theme of the first book. The theme of the second book was birds, right? So, my monk friend had told me that when you're present or when your mind is still, you can hear the birds. And, in the first chapter, I didn't hear the birds. Then I only heard them on Sundays. And then when she left, I didn't hear them at all. And at the end of the book, spoiler alert, I heard them. So it was just kind of this coming together moment. But I think every book needs a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so that's how I write my book. I basically, for this one at least, it's the calendar year. of things that I've experienced, situations, grief, love, heartbreak, you know, and themes that run throughout. So that's kind of how I navigate making the book. So it's still a story. There's a story throughout. There is purpose in it. It's not just 100 things that I've written this year. But that's how I kind of operate the book. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Because I love to read a story, right? As much as I write poetry, things like that. So I try to make the stuff that I put out, the stuff that I would like to read.
Mm-hmm. What would you say you almost didn't create the third book. Have you thought about a fourth? Like what is the future looking like for you in terms of writing, in terms of still being an author?
Yeah, so I'll always write. No matter if people see it or they don't, I'll always write. I think being able to work with John on things like narration and advertisements or whatever it is, I think that stuff is cool. I'll always do that stuff. I think I want to continue the books as long as people want them, as long as life could change in an instant. You know, I don't know what it'll be like if I get married or kids, you know, because that's a separate level of privacy that I would want. But I would still want to tell the world, like shout from the rooftops, the things that I've, you know, done. So my plan is to continue writing. In what format? It could vary. Sometimes I want to write short stories. Sometimes I want to write poems and things like that. But the important thing is that I'll always be writing. Whether it's, you know, notes to my wife that I'll have one day, you know, notes at the foot of the bed and just give them to them, my kids one day. I'll always write, and I'll always be found in the books. You know, if anybody wonders the type of person I was, it's in the books. And I love that premise. I hate the premise that we could all be gone in a heartbeat. But I wish that, you know, somebody like my uncle had something where I could read it and be like, this is what his life was like when he was 30, 31, 28, 29, you know. I wish I had that. And so I'll continue to try to give that to the people, you know, that I love. You know, just be myself, put it in books, and show people, you know, that you could do anything. You know, I come from a place where if you would have told me 10 years ago that I'm writing poetry books, that shit's soft, right? That shit's soft. That's just not hard. That's not G. But now I'm at the point where it's like everybody feels it. Like everybody feels everything that I write about, you know? And I'm not saying like everybody likes it. I'm saying there are emotions in the book that everybody feels. You know, everybody gets sad. Everybody's, you know, felt like they've found the one or has been heartbroken. So everybody could connect to it, you know? So, this shit's soft. Okay. Not for you. Say it to my face. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'll always write. I don't know what the future looks like. I'll always have goals. I think it's super important to have goals. And I'm one of those people that needs to have something coming up. I need to be working on something. That's probably not the greatest thing, but I need to constantly be working towards something. Somebody told me once, you have to be like running water and just go. Sometimes leaky water, brown water comes out, but you just got to go.
What's that thing that you're currently working on?
Book 3, sorry. Book 3, I'm still putting together the nooks and crannies of it and the theme around it and how much I want to talk about certain things. I'm also working with something that involves John and West Bay, which is exciting and really cool. So yeah, a couple of things. I'm gonna drink water.
I guess a part of me wants to know, like, you write a lot. Is that how you express your love? Like, is that how you tell somebody that you love them, is through the writing? Are you verbally expressive to the people that are around you? Because I know sometimes, like certain gestures, are acts of love. You could be able to write about how much you love somebody or whatever, but you can't tell them.
Yeah.
Is that something that you struggle with, or is that something that's just been your outlet in terms of like how you express it to other people?
I think you nailed it with the first one, and I kind of never really unpacked that. I'm very good at telling people who have left my life how I feel about them, right? Like situations that, or relationships, whatever it is, that have ended. I'm really good at telling those people, come back. This was great. This is what I think about it. This was, the moon and the stars. I'm not very good at like saying it to like my family, like I think it was because when I was younger, like they weren't totally on board with this, like me going to the city and playing in parks and stuff like that. So it always kind of hid things from them, like my successes. Like even now, I'll have like small successes. I'll win like Poet of the Week or Month or whatever it is, and I won't tell anybody, just because I'm stuck in that like kid mindset where like, oh, they don't want me to do this. They're not going to really rock with it anyway, whatever it is. But I don't think I tell anybody close to me that I love them enough. They know, but hearing that girl say that she's proud of me and knowing what it did to me, I can only imagine what I love you would do to somebody who doesn't hear it often from me. So that's something I try to work on. I sit here and I act like, I don't act like, but because I could articulate the way I feel, people assume that I do it to everybody, right? Like I'm articulate and emotionally aware with everybody. And that's not the case. I'm far from perfect. It's definitely not easy to be with me, but I think that through writing, I say what I feel and things like that, but I wish I would be a better son, brother, cousin, right? My cousins just went through a horrible, horrible event. And all I do is wish that I could just be more. I don't know if I'm being enough or if I'm bad. I just wish I could be better. I wish I could be a better son, to my father. I'm a representation of them, a better uncle. We have 2 little girls, my nieces in this world who are seeing a very different world than what I saw growing up. So I want to be somebody who shows them that they can do anything. So being better with that stuff and telling people I love them, because they know I'm an emotional guy. They know that I love them. But hearing it is one thing, right? Thinking it and knowing it is one thing, but saying it is another thing. And I think I'm always trying to be better in terms of that. And look how much credit I give to the people who leave, right, in the books. Right? I hold them to a pedestal. I write pages about them or about the situation. And I don't write nearly enough about the love of my family or my mother or my father. But I'm human, and I try not to get on myself too much because I do love them. They know that. But it's just one of those things we work on, we get better. But like you said, the answer is no, I don't always put it in person. A lot of it is in the writing. And so I have to be better.
What stops you from saying it? Like what stops you from telling somebody you love them, or what stops you from expressing it how you want to, or you said that you want to be a better uncle or you want to be a better son. Like what stops you from doing that? Like what stops you from expressing how you really feel to them?
The moment. Everything is so fast. Everything's so fast paced that like If I were to text or call somebody like, I love you, they'd be like, what's going on? You know, like it's a real thing. But what stops me from doing anything, right? It's just, we try to be better. We try to do good and hold ourselves accountable. And I try to show love, right? Because I'm somebody who firmly believes that words are one thing, actions are another, right? I could tell you I'm funny, or I can make you laugh. I could tell you I'm interested in you, or I could drive miles away to come see you. You know, words don't hold the weight that actions do. And I've always felt that way. I feel that way in relationships, right? If somebody wants to be with you, they will. My opinion kind of changed on that, but I'm very action-based. If I want you to know something, I will show you. And I think that kind of got to my head a little bit, because I'm showing them, but I'm not necessarily telling them.
Yeah, there's definitely a both. Because I guess in that statement, like, I've struggled with that as well, in terms of like showing people that you love them. Sometimes the words and actions hasn't always like been up to par.
Mm-hmm.
And I just know that showing somebody that you love them is one thing as well, and it's important. But then telling them is a different thing, you know.
It hits different because you don't hear it often.
Yeah, and it's not even saying like what's going on. There might be nothing that's going on. It just might be
Tuesday.
I just wanted you to know. Yeah, just a Tuesday. Just wanted you to know. But I think that with all that being said, I think we need to do it because there's going to be an instance where we're not here anymore. They're not going to see it, or they're not going to hear it anymore from our voice. They'll know the actions that we did, right? Mm-hmm. But they might not know, like, on a random Tuesday.
Yep.
This person has just told me that they love me, you know?
Yeah. Because look, somebody told me they were proud of me. I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
It was Wednesday, right? Like, I remember that shit. Like, it just hits. And I think it's, I don't know if it's because I'm like an emotional guy. I feel it. Like, I have this conversation with John a lot. Like, it's a gift and a curse that I feel everything, right? Everything. But I would rather feel everything than feel nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of comes with the territory. But, you know, you kind of wonder if people are on your wavelength in terms of like, do they want to hear this right now? Right? I would want to hear it. So I think it just varies from person to person and situation to situation. But I think it's something to work on. And I think that as long as we have something to work on, our job's not finished. And we're running water. Always have to be doing something. Goals.
1%.
Yeah. 1% better every day.
Yeah. It's that's so real, so true. I guess in terms of what you just said about feeling everything instead of feeling nothing, I'm reading this book. It's called I always blank on the name. But it basically is a book on happiness. Mm-hmm. And there was a line in the book that said that one of the most important things of this life is that our feelings matter. And I can't think of how many people that I've came across that try to push those feelings down towards anything. You know, it's not even love, or it's not even anything. Like, you can't be happy for yourself and you can't feel that win.
Yeah.
You know, you can't feel something so euphoric or so gratifying, so you push it down, or you use other things to kind of numb that pain.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, like, what would we be without our feelings? Because our feelings lead to emotions, and our emotions lead to just a chain reaction.
Chain reaction, right? They lead to incredible things a lot of times, right? They lead to amazing ideas, right? For me, they led me to 2 books.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people suppress their feelings, and anything you push down, right, come out the other end at some way, whether it's an addiction, it's anger, it's whatever you're doing. So anytime you push something down, it's got to come out somewhere. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but at some point. So I'm always thankful that I feel everything. And what are we without our feelings, right? And what are we without being able to tell people our feelings, right? Because everybody experiences feelings. I feel like I'm lucky having an outlet to tell people how I feel and how comfortable I am. Because that's the thing too, especially in like situations or relationships and stuff like that. Like, especially now, I'm 31. There's like a game that plays, like text me first. This, like I said, I'm action based. If I want to talk to you, I'll talk to you. I'll call you. I'll text you. I don't care if I have to text you twice, right? You're not supposed to. I made a career off doing what other people don't do, right? So that's my mindset. If I want to talk to somebody, I'll do it, right? If I want to reach out to you, if I want to call, I'll call you. So it's like we live by kind of this fake game of rules. It's like, if I feel like I want to talk to you, if I'm feeling this kind of way and you could help me, or I just want to spend time with you, that's what I'm feeling. I have no problem doing that, and that's new to a lot of people that I come across, because a lot of people's idea of somebody is closed, not vulnerable, all that stuff. So it's an adjustment for me to get vulnerable. I don't really get vulnerable with a lot of people. I'm very big on, I've said this before, being vulnerable with the right people, because a lot of people don't care about you. They care about the story, right? They care about what happened opposed to what happened, how you're doing. So being vulnerable around people, I think, is you have to be cautious, but there's nothing wrong with saying how you feel, right? There's like this idea, and I realized it recently, like real is beautiful. Like being honest and being real is beautiful. Not this whole idea of what the male gaze is, where it's like, oh, get to me, this is a game, you can't get my... That's not beautiful to me. Beautiful is real and not having to be my best around somebody, but wanting to be my best around somebody, but it's okay to fall short sometimes. There's not that pressure. That's what real is, honesty. And that's kind of what is beautiful to me, opposed to like this whole game that people play now. We have very real feelings. I think if we get to the point where we develop those feelings, then it's important for people to know.
There's a part of what you sent me, and I wanna read it to you, and I want to know what your interpretations of this were. Give the people a breakdown of it. Flowers that bloom in a forest fire will always fear the smell of smoke. I've learned that some might even get worried the second they feel warmth.
Yeah. I was in a situation with somebody who comes from, a little bent, a little dented, right? Has a story. Didn't come from the easiest background. Household wasn't like mine, right? They weren't gifted a happy home like I was. They kind of struggled a little bit. And I didn't know them at that point, right? They went through whatever they went through in high school or college. And then when I met them and spent time with them, it felt very real. It's like that real beautiful that I was telling you about, and I felt like I didn't feel like it then, but I was running uphill. It was a battle I couldn't win, because they had a lot of things to deal with from when they were younger, and they were used to chaos. They were used to people putting holes in walls, screaming, yelling. That's not my vibe. That's not my shit. So the idea behind that is that this was a flower that was bred in wildfire, always heat, always craziness. And now that they've done some work on themselves, they come across somebody who is welcoming or warm, or is a candle compared to a wildfire, and they kind of don't know, they're not used to it. So I think it scares them. And that's kind of was the premise behind that, where sometimes people are so used to chaos that when they meet someone who's not chaotic, someone who's calm, then things kind of shift, right? Then this can't be real.
Yeah.
This isn't what I want or what I'm used to.
Mm-hmm.
So they run.
What I interpreted that when I read that is that, and hearing a little bit of, in the beginning of this podcast, this might be a little bit of an uncomfortable question, but when I interpreted that is that you were afraid of the warmth, because I didn't know if it was coming from a personal perspective or another point of view or another viewpoint of life. And hearing earlier that you were afraid to bring those to that brick home that you talked about, and letting people in that. With this notion of love and how much you want love, are you secretly scared of love?
Yeah. Before I get into that, quickly, there was a quote that says, if 1,000 people read one book, they've read 1,000 different books, which means that like everybody interprets something differently, which is a quote I love. But to go back to your question, yes, I fear, I don't know. I think yes. I think I more so fear being inadequate.
Inadequate for love, or for another person.
For a person, I know I'm capable of giving love and receiving love, but I know that the person I choose to or whatever, we don't even know if we choose, will deserve the world, and I would want to give them the world. And the fact that I can't lasso the moon would kill me. The fact that I can't be everything and more would haunt me. But in my experience, I've felt almost that way before. But I think the right person would make it like it's okay. I don't need the moon. Right? What do I need the moon for? What am I going to do with it? Too bright. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I don't fear it, but I've been in situations where I want to be my best, but it's okay if I'm not. So am I scared? Yeah, there's a lot of pressure. You don't want to let anybody down. And I've carried that all my whole life, not wanting to let anybody down. But I think at times it's this big grandiose thing, but sometimes it feels very simple. Like what I said before, all we do is spend time. So you meet somebody you really like, and you spend time with them. And you do it again and again. Before you know it, you're spending time in a house. Before you do it, you're spending time and your kids are running around. So we can visualize it as this very intense, grandiose, big thing. Or we could take it day by day. My thing is, as long as you're here, right, as long as we're both here and we're spending time with each other, everything else will come. We make sacrifices, right? So yeah, I think I'm scared of more so the inadequacy, right? Not being up to par, opposed to being in it.
Would you let yourself down? You said that was your biggest fear, is letting other people down, but is there a part of you that is afraid you might let yourself down? Not being able to give somebody the moon, not being able to give them the world.
Yeah, because I know I can. I know if there was a way, I would do everything I can to lasso the moon. But I don't know, actually. It's a good question. Because I feel like every time somebody leaves my life, whatever it is, I used to feel like I really let myself down. And then it kind of, you understand that other people kind of have things going on. But I don't. I think. I don't know. It's a tough question. It's tough. It's tough to say, and I think once I'm in that situation, I'll be able to kind of tell you more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I give my all to everything. And I think that's why I am where I am today, because I dive into everything head first. I don't do anything half-ass. If I want something, I'll go for it. If I love something, I'll bleed for it. It's just one of those things. And I give myself to every situation, and that's why I'm able to kind of move without any quarrels. Oh, I should have said this. I should have done that. I gave everything, and I will give everything. So I'm not really. When it comes, we'll see.
Yeah. Last question for you. What do you want your legacy to be?
I want to be known as somebody who was kind and creative and loved a lot of things and people. I want people to remember me in warm lit rooms, in beautiful skylines and skies, right? Like I was open, I was warm, I was kind, I was all these things. And I'll be in the books. Like that's, I'll be, if you need to know anything about Pasquale, I'll be in the books. And I think my legacy would be somebody who was able to articulate the way he feels and struggled a bunch, but, never broke my posture, never took my knees out, powered through, and I'll always be there to power through with the people around me.
Pasquale, thank you.
Thank you.
This was an incredible podcast, conversation based, and I appreciate your transparency and sharing your vulnerabilities with me, and I'm proud of you. So
thank you.
Where can the people find you on Instagram or social media?
So I am Pasquale Gee, PasqualeGee _ on Instagram. At Poems for Her on TikTok. And then just Pasquale Gee everywhere else. You can Google it. There's only one. Well, there's two, my dad. But yeah.
Pasquale, thank you again.
Thank you.